This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I am your moderator for today, Bud, here with Moneyball Ross and Data Mike. Boys, we are back at it again today. I got a little present in my inbox today that I thought I would share with you guys first, and that's from our boy over at Go Brewing. Matt Stanky dropped me in the mail some Easy Man. So if anybody wants to get airtime on the pod and sends us freebies, like we are happy to grift this as much as we can, right, Ross?
Right. Well, last episode I almost stopped you guys mid-piece and said, this episode brought to you by Good to Grow.
Good to Grow.
I feel like we mention them like every other episode, so I feel like they need to be a sponsor. So
it's a good opportunity to say we do not have any paid sponsors.
I love it. What I got a kick out of
but we could.
Yeah.
We could. What I got a kick out of this email is that P.S. you may not have ordered Sunshine State because that's the picture, but we just like the photo.
That's awesome.
If this went to my mom would have been like, I didn't order that. 100%.
You'll have to let me know how it was. I've been wanting to try that one. It looks pretty interesting.
It should be good. Well, we'll see when it shows up. You may get a can. Who knows?
Perfect. I'll have to grab some when I'm over in Illinois next.
I know we're going to be going through there. Well, you would be going through there in short order as well.
Yeah,
I love it.
Soon.
Well, we're going to get into some real conversation more on leadership today. And this is around the deposit and withdrawal feedback loop. It's a leadership philosophy that I've come to describe through credit and debit, like you're adding thank yous and appreciation to a bank account you have with somebody, and you might be withdrawing from time to time as well, and have some ebbs and flows. The three of us prescribe to this notion. We've kind of named it over our time of working together, the credit and debit or deposit and withdrawal feedback loop. So it's been something that we've kind of talked a lot with clients about, use internally at our organization, and use it with reps when we're out in the field. But I kind of want to describe the concept to folks real quick, is that trust or relationships is just like a bank account in my world, and that every piece of feedback that you enter that's positive is some kind of deposit that you're putting in the bank account with whomever you're speaking with or negotiating with at the time. And any kind of negative or challenge that you might bring to them can be a withdrawal or can be used as a withdrawal. Things like the sandwich method, I don't like, where you have to do a positive and a negative and a positive. The notion behind that is that means you have no deposit, you have no, bank to withdraw from, and you have to deposit into it. This also comes from Mike would probably be a good descriptor of this as well. This comes from some road rash as well from our operation with my father, who was chronically negative with folks, and to the point in which I felt like I had to be so positive to offset the chronic negativity, and that would actually drive results better as I got more and more positive with the team. So I watched it work, and that's kind of where my road rash comes from a little bit in this topic as well too. So catch more honey with bee, or you catch more bees with honey is actually how you don't catch bees with honey. You catch honey with bees, right? Or something like that. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today. Mike, on your mind, does that vibe with you? Have you seen this work? Do you think I'm crazy? All that good stuff.
No, far from crazy. And I mean, this can relate to the real world too. In our personal lives, I use it a lot. Hopefully Jamie's not listening, but I use it a lot at home too, right? Where I want to make some withdrawals or some deposits before I make a withdrawal. Actually, you and I were talking about that the other day when I'm going to be on the road a lot. So I'm making a lot of deposits right now, running the kids all over so that when I'm on the road, those withdrawals are a little bit easier. But I mean, and it relates to our reps, and when we're constantly making withdrawals and not creating deposits, the coaching isn't going to land, right? So when we're making withdrawals and we're coaching them up and we're patting them on the back and we're giving the recognition, that lands as coaching too. When we come in a little bit more, it's like, hey, I love you, but I think we can do this a little bit better. You come at it from the side of you can do better. You can do better. Why are you doing this? You can do better. This looks like crap, right? Then you go to make a withdrawal, and your bank account's already empty. Then you're like, this guy, he's always on my back. I can never do anything, right? And
Yep.
that goes back and forth. But overall, that's where it lands on me. I mean, we use it every single day.
And just because Jamie knows you use it doesn't mean it doesn't work.
No, it works
For the record, bud, you are crazy.
That is good. I do know that. You are right about that, Ross. Ross, feedback bank on your end. You've got 2 little girls. You use that at home. You use it with your wife too? Rashanda?
No. I just withdraw.
Just withdraw.
Well, then go get Shanda on the line. Let's get her perspective from this overdrawn account here.
We'll try to make some deposits for you, Ross, because you're going to get yourself in trouble soon enough too.
My marriage is paid. I just take.
Just say, I love it. So deposits, what do they look like, boys? Recognition, positive reinforcement, celebrating the process. Do they have to be, Ross, in your mind, do they have to be designed uniquely all the time? Do they have to be acknowledged or known? If I do this, I get that? Or can they be serendipitous?
Well, I think that this is a natural human thing that goes back to when we were small hunter-gatherers, right? I mean, my gosh, I'm going to be able to tie this back to economics again this week, 3 weeks in a row. So money existed as one of the first, as long as verbal communication, right? Because we kept score, in the absence of a good currency. You would just, hey, if I have an excess amount of hunting success today and I share with you, then hopefully you'll share with me tomorrow. And that worked in a small hunter-gatherer group. As we've expanded as a society, that hasn't left us, right? The idea that, if I do some things for you, that we're going to keep an unsettled score in the back of our heads that, hopefully I can withdraw upon later. And your idea of debit and credits, but we got to the Renaissance and we formalized that in a banking way, but it existed long before we had money and long before we had banks. The idea that it's primordial to us as humans, the idea that we're doing things for each other and we keep a ledger in our heads, or not even in our heads, but the idea that if I do things for you, that you're going to do things for me later.
There's all kinds of little sayings in the English language or in human communication. Scratch my back, I scratch yours.
I think that comes from those monkeys in Africa that are pulling the ticks off each other's backs.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of things like these little itty bitty sayings, and I'm sure listeners will share more that have come to mind as well. You catch more positives with honey than you do with fly swatters or anything else. It's fun to think about for me because there's so much negativity in the world. When you are being positive with folks on a regular basis, they're more likely to be around you and want to be around you. And if we think about our work life and our personal life, if you live in a world where you have a difficult home life, a challenging marriage, a confrontational marriage or confrontational home life in some way, if you don't have that at work and you are a boss listening to this, or you can create an environment where that kind of activity doesn't happen in a negative sense on a regular basis at work, those folks are more apt to want to come to work. They're more apt to want to be there, or more apt to want to spend more time there. They're more apt to want to stay working with you for longer. This is some of the non-economic stuff that we've teased out on a couple of the other podcasts that actually show up on your bottom line through lower turnover, through people that are with you longer, so you can train them right and they stay with you, you get better return with them longer. All of this shows up on the bottom line, but the way you create it is very squishy. And that's one of the reasons why this probably doesn't get a lot of notice on a regular basis, is it is incredibly squishy. Mikey, you're a big recognition guy. Serendipitous recognition over design recognition. Do you have a preference for one or the other?
No, I think recognition is recognition, no matter which way it comes. But it goes a lot further than you really think, and just recognition in a sales meeting or recognition one-on-one in the back room of an account, whatever it is, that goes really, really far with the rep. And that recognition is obviously a deposit, right? And as we make these deposits, we're building our trust too, and we're building up our rep or our team leader or whoever we're making these, or our wife, whoever we're making these deposits with. And then once we have their trust, they're going to take correction as coach too, right? Without that trust, they're going to take the words as an attack. And that's a big difference. And when you are constantly feeling the negatives and the withdrawals, any kind of coaching is feeling you're just being attacked again. And you, like I said earlier, you can't do anything right. So taking the opportunity whenever you notice somebody doing something right or good, or, hey, I really like that idea, even just slowing down to look for something that could be positive. I really like the way you did that. That's great. I'm going to recognize that in a sales meeting, or, I'm going to send that out in our group text to the rest of the team because I think what you did there is really cool. That goes a long way. Huge deposit.
And Ross,
I think it's also important to recognize that human beings are different and they're motivated and respond to different things. There's not a one size fits all. We talk about it in, industrial organization a lot, which is the idea that some people are motivated by, some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by, responsibility. Other people are motivated by constant feedback, positive reinforcement. So I think it's important to understand, especially if you're in a leadership position, those individuals around you and what it is that makes them tick. And, you may not be getting the results you want from somebody because you're not speaking to what they're, and we talk about it in relationships all the time. We go back to love language. You're not speaking their work love language. And you need to look at your individuals that work for you and understand what their love or work love language is. And, it's no different than when you have kids. I mean, your kids can be very radically different in terms of who they are as people. And, your disciplinary structure and how you coach them and how you lift them up is different from kid to kid because they're different. And in our work family, it's no different.
Ross, what is your love language?
I don't know, man.
Economics.
Economics. Sarah and I did the love language test at one point, and what was great is that you get, I think there's 7 of them. There's 5 or 7 of them, one of the two. This is how little I remember it. And gifts was last for both of us. It's like, this is so easy then. Like, I don't have to buy or always be on point with the birthdays and the Christmas and everything else. And there is a funny comedian that's like, anybody whose love language is gifts is just an asshole. Is one of the comedian things they say. Now, we're not talking.
Which love language is the one where you get a nice bottle of wine and get left alone in the woods camping?
There is like quality time, which I think can be QT with your partner, but also QT alone as well. I think people can quantify that differently as well. We could probably Google.
You just have to create projects up or out camping. Is I really need to get out there and take care.
No, I want no projects.
I know, but
I want to sit there and stare at a lake with a mountain behind it with a glass of like really nice Burgundian wine and be left the fuck alone.
There's 5 of them. Words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. I would think that we would label that in a relationship, a romantic relationship, Ross, is what you're describing as an act of service by Shanna to allow you to go out into the woods by yourself and drink a bottle of Burgundy because she will take care of the girls without you. So I would define that as an act of service.
Okay.
I love that. That is awesome. Other piece about this is that I don't want anybody to walk away from this and be like, oh, these knuckleheads are just all rosy and rainbows. They don't want people to actually withdraw or actually have tougher conversations or make corrections or create accountability. we talk about accountability every day. You have to have accountability. You have to have tough conversations. We have to nudge and correct folks to do the right thing. All I'm advocating, all that we are advocating for, is that when you do it from a position of positive deposit of money in the bank. So when you have that negative conversation, it lands on somebody like this, like, hey, buddy, you've been we've been talking about this. I need you to adjust this process. I've talked to you about doing this before. You're usually on point with everything else. As you know, I talked to you about this last week, this a week before, this a week before that, around all the positive things that you're doing. I need you to clean this up now, finally. Like I need you to fix this because I've talked to you about it a couple of times, or it's very important to the company, or whatever it is. And the hope is that if you have enough deposits and you make this withdrawal, all the conversation is at home with buddy's wife or buddy's best friend is, my boss gave me a hard time today, but it's no big deal because they haven't been riding my ass, or they've been talking to me about all the positive stuff, and I was kind of a slacker and I didn't focus on it, and I need to get it done. And that is the kind of the way you want it to land on somebody. And Mike, when that happens, this is about getting them to shift their perspective faster and meeting them where that person is.
Yeah. 100%. And when you were telling that story, I mean, I've had both types of managers, right? I've had the nothing but withdrawals manager, and the manager that was really good about balancing the account and putting some deposits in there as well. And I think back to the manager, I'm not going to say names on that, but I think back to the manager that was nothing but debits and debits and debits and withdrawals. And I would take the feedback just as, that person's always upset. I can't make that person happy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do anything right. Whatever. So if that person told me to do something better, I would just take it as whatever, screw you. I'm doing my own thing. But then fast forward to Tom, right? And Tom was really good at making deposits and verbal ways, recognition, even with monetary ways too, and saying, hey, walking out to the warehouse guys, they get very little recognition. Hey, we had a really tough week. Everybody busted their butt. We got all the beer out of the warehouse, even though we were shorthanded this week. Here's $50. Take your spouse out to dinner tonight, or have a couple of beers, whatever it may be. Those are some of our toughest critics in our entire establishment to keep happy. And those deposits went a long way. And even when I think about myself, and when he was making deposits like that, to me, more or less recognition, right? That was my, I guess, love language too. Not that I didn't like money, but when he would approach me and say, hey, I really need you to do this. And it could be a tough withdrawal. It could be, hey, I need you to do this. And normally you would walk away with your head down and you'd be like, yeah, screw him. I'm so mad. But in that case, I would actually get down on myself a little bit more and like, ooh, I disappointed Tom. I could do better. Right? Like, this guy has made a lot of deposits into me. The bank account has the holding power to make this withdrawal, and I would want to do better. It wasn't like I was mad and shut down and was like, screw this place, screw that, I'm out of here. It was, I really want to do better, and I'm going to take what he said and I'm going to strive to do better.
I love it. Ross, any work-life stories on your end from good managers, bad managers in this world?
Yeah, I mean, good managers, what's the old adage? They are mentoring you and they're not afraid of making you into something greater than themselves. And you do that with kids too, right? But the greatest managers are people that are working themselves out of a job. That they're not threatened by great talent coming up. They're bringing that talent up to take their job with the hope that maybe they're moving up. But I see too many people that, across my career where they're so afraid to hold on to the knowledge they have and the control they have. And they're not, they don't realize their life can be a lot better if they've got 3 people coming up behind them that can do their job. And I think that's lost on a lot of people.
Yeah. We get worried about that. I think it's more of a self-security thing in one way, shape, or form, and being self-aware of where your strengths and weaknesses are. And that happens a lot in corporate America too, maybe not so much in smaller teams just because the teams are so small, but definitely in larger teams, whether they're in corporate America or even in our, family distributorship operations, one way or shape or form. So what are some of the common overdraft triggers? One of the things for me is like constant fire drills, chaos after chaos, no clear direction on what I want to do next. Those are a couple that come to mind that really drive me nuts as withdrawals. Ross, what about you? Anything that you got that you feel like are common overdraft triggers on folks?
Yeah, I mean, the thought that came to mind is we used to a name for those people is seagulls.
Yes.
They fly in, they shit on everything, and fly away. That's the absolute worst. And there's somebody we nicknamed Seagull that I will never, I will not say the name, but they went by the nickname Seagull because of this.
Did it ever accidentally get sold in front of him?
No. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Seagulls are a good one. Mike, anything on your mind that are telltale overdraft triggers? If somebody hears this, is like, ooh, I do that, I should maybe think about not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of them. I could sit here and list a bunch. And we've talked about a bunch already, but a couple others. And moving the goalposts, right? We talked about this a couple weeks ago. When you're changing the quotas halfway through, that's a pretty big withdrawal, because now you're basically stealing from the reps, and they put in the work, and you change the rules, and that's a pretty big debit. Silence also too. Silence is a debit as well. Just completely being silent, unrecognized, like you're not even there, and the only time your manager speaks to you is when you need to do better, or do something, different, or a favor. So yeah, silence too. But yeah, I mean, many of them. Killing the trust. Anything that's going to kill the trust is a huge withdrawal.
I think there's the idea too, and this involves, as you interact or manage upwards, just showing up with a problem and just dumping it on people creates stress and, anxiety. I find it's better to show up with the problem, action, solution. You should think through these things before you show up, because just showing up and just like shitting on everything and being like, everything's terrible, everything's awful, and then walking away. Like, to me, that's really shitty. Like, you show up and say, yeah, we got a problem, we've got actions, and we got solutions, and come with options, and let your team engage the options. You may already know the best one, but at least give the perception that we're working as a team to figure out the best solution. So I think that, I joke about the seagull, but I think that's a huge one, which is just showing up with problems. And nobody likes that.
My favorite managing up PAR, because that's an actual process, right? Or is it, what do they call it? It's problem, action, solution. Is it PASS or something like that?
No, I just made that up. I know.
I've heard that. I feel like, well, maybe you're the one who introduced it to me then. It must have been you that introduced me to it, but
no, I must have heard it somewhere, but I've used it pretty much my entire professional life.
So if you're listening and you're thinking about managing up, or you're trying to decide how to maybe tackle something, and you have a problem and you have a solution, and you want to have an action or a solution you want to take. My sister-in-law is a corporate operator. She's in big corporate middle management at a senior VP, and I love the way she manages it. She says, bring your boss two things: one you want to do, and one they'll never do. That is a perfect way to manage up. I love it. I got a big kick out of it the first time she said that.
I mean, and listen, I mean, we've been talking a lot about, managing people, but, the other half of the direction is managing upwards and then managing outward. And, managing upward, it's, make your boss look good. And I don't think that's a bad thing to say or do. And that'll benefit you across, because that's a deposit, right? If you say, hey boss, we got this big problem, but don't worry, already solved it. And then, your boss goes and takes credit upwards for what happened. It looks great. I mean, and you made a big deposit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's overlooked too. It's like, you don't necessarily have to take a victory lap and, depositing with your boss can often be making them look good.
We've got a world of having to manage out with a lot of suppliers as well too. I mean, there's opportunity to leverage this in unique ways outside of our as distributor leaders, leverage this in outside of our four walls with our district managers, our state directors, anybody who's region level for one of our larger suppliers, and finding fun ways to do that and leverage this information too. Let's talk about practical ways to make a deposit. Favorite one is just catch them in the act and notify them or chat with them about that positive feedback in real time, not waiting for it, doing it immediately. Mikey, you love doing stuff in an organized fashion at sales meetings in front of teams. What does that look like?
I love it. Yeah, we used to do it quite a bit. But just being out in the market as you are, and when you see great execution, you see something good, you see something that the rest of the team should see, then show the rest of the team, right? The recognition goes as a deposit for the rep that did it, and the execution that you're showing goes as a coaching or maybe even training opportunity for the rest of the team. So that's huge. We used to love to do that, being out in the market and seeing cool stuff and being like, yeah, that's a great idea. Or, just this rep was on top of it. This looks great. Or they thought outside of the box, anything like that, throwing it up on the big screen during our sales meetings. Or even if you're not out, just great execution on maybe a new product you're looking for distribution of, or something that's been around and you're tracking distribution, throwing those numbers up there and saying, hey, Billy's really getting after it this month. Billy, kudos to you, right? That goes a long way.
Yep, you gotta love it. Ross, what other ways are you making practical deposits in your world with folks as well?
I think just calling out people when they're doing a good job and working hard. I mean, that's, when you stop and make it and call it out when you see it. I think, Mike, you basically rattled through a bunch of things. I mean, I also like the idea of making an unexpected gesture, right? That's also an important one, which is, the unexpected gesture to me is an important one. I think, and Mike, you talked about it with like, hey, here's $50, the warehouse team. But I think the unexpected ones are better than something that becomes expected and part of compensation.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you don't want that to become an entitlement where it's like, yeah, I get a bonus every year around this time. But you walk out into the warehouse and hand somebody a $50 bill, or one of your reps pull them aside and just say, hey, you're going to get a little bump in your pay this week, because what we realized and we noticed that you were doing something really well. That's huge too. Not a lot of companies are in the position, I'm sure, right now to just walk around handing out money, but that does go a really far way too, as long with the recognition.
Yeah, consistency beats intensity at the end of the day. If you are thinking about this and you're like, this is landing well and I'm not sure how to get started, start small. Consistent steps on a regular basis is the best thing you can start with. Don't make grand gestures. They don't do as much. The incremental impact of a grand gesture over doing something small is not worth an ROI if you're just getting started. Or especially if you're somebody who feels like they have been over withdrawing, it's going to sound and look inauthentic. And if you start small and build your way up to something bigger over time, or a larger bank account deposit over time, it's just going to be a smoother transition than if you try to do a grand gesture. Felt like we did tried to do a lot of grand gestures on a regular basis at Atlas before my time, and it didn't really fit the mold. Felt a little inauthentic. And when we simplified stuff and just make it more consistent and predictable and steady, it beat that intensity of that big party we would throw once a year. And we didn't have to do that. It just wasn't relevant.
It went farther. I mean, honestly, on the receiving end of all that too, it went farther with it being unexpected than it being expected. If I had expected, $300 every December for a Merry Christmas bonus, and a $50 bill or a $20 bill out of the blue saying, hey, you did a great job, or a $100 bill, whatever, you did a great job this week. That goes way far. Because then that $300, I knew it was coming. I didn't really do anything different to earn it. But then I was just recognized for going above and beyond or working hard or doing something special.
Mm-hmm. The first time I want to tell a real world story to kind of show how somebody can come from nothing in this world and actually build a bank account together. So, Mike, you remember Brandon and Larry, and they were drivers, divas, just divas. Both of them were. And Larry might have been the biggest one. And they got.
Do you think he listens to this podcast?
No, he doesn't. Even if he does, he'll get a kick out of this. They both will. So, but neither of them listen to this. They're former Atlas team members. So, they got in a pissing contest for. And Mikey, you might have to help me fill in some of the gaps of how we got to this point. But it finally ended with Brandon screaming at Larry in the warehouse, and they never even worked together. I don't even know why they were screaming at each other. But Brandon screaming in the warehouse with Larry, and then us finding out the following day of what had happened once they had come off of the route. So we hauled Brandon in, and I said, what's going on? Like, what is going on? And we learned a little bit more. And Tommy always used to keep a cup of change, right? Hanging around in his office.
Yeah.
And I was like, give me that change cup, Tommy. And he said, okay. And I said, so I laid out all the coins and I said, Brandon, we've got a relationship and I've deposited some value and some positive feedback into the bank account that we have together. And I can tell you and have a difficult conversation. I can pull some coins into my bank account and take them out of your bank account and tell you some things that I'm not very happy with today. And he said, yep, you can do that. And I know, you know exactly what I'm talking about from what happened last night too. And he said, yep. And I said, what do you think yours and Larry's bank account looks like? And he kind of paused and I said, I'm going to tell you what I think yours and Larry's bank account looks like. And I pulled all of his coins across and I said, you have none in Larry's account and Larry has none in yours. You guys have nothing. You are, for whatever reason, hate each other right now. And you can't get him to do whatever you want him to do, whatever you want to talk to him, because you have no positive relationship together. You have to start there. And he's like, I never thought about it like that. And I said, you got young kids, right? He's like just a brand new dad. I'm like, you can't grow up with your daughter where you're constantly negative with her. Do you think that's going to breed a smart young woman? He said, no, that'll breed somebody who hates the world, who'll be very frustrated. I said, why the hell are we communicating with Larry like that then? And he went back out and he said, what do I do next? And I said, well, I would apologize to Larry if I were you, but I don't know if you're able to do that. But I would start there. And he walked out and apologized to Larry. And like they figured out their shit over the next 6 or 7 months. And it was fun to watch somebody from the outside who had no relationship with one another. And again, I don't remember what they were arguing about. Mike, they were two different drivers. They didn't even drive together. They didn't even do the same. They did the same thing.
Same people though. And usually when two of the same people just butt heads. But yeah, I don't remember the details either.
It was so weird, but it was just like you can start from nothing and find your way to common ground if you're diligent and you're consistent about it over a period of time. It doesn't have to, it's not rocket science in my book at all.
Well, I think there's a common thread that, between all of us and how we organize our business and how we, project ourselves out into the industry. It's this idea of giving people agency. It's not telling somebody exactly what they need to do. It's here's our objective or here's the issue and giving them the agency to solve the problem. And we tend to surround ourselves with people that are capable of handling that agency. We've talked about it from a sales team perspective. Hey, you want to hire people that or put people in the sales role that have the ability to go out and execute based on give them the incentives, essentially the problem. And then and give them the proper, structure and allow them to go, execute, which is exactly what you did in that story, Bud, which is you didn't tell them exactly what to do. You just framed the problem and then gave them the agency with which to solve. You didn't say, hey, get out there and apologize to him, asshole. That's not what you did. And I think you get a better result from a certain type of person. But I think, we tend to surround ourselves with people that, you can give them that objective or that problem and give them the agency to solve it.
We had weeded all the people.
None of us want to micromanage people.
No. We had weeded all the folks that needed to be micromanaged out of the network by then. And because they wouldn't survive, and one of two things would happen. They would find themselves languishing because they don't know what to do next, or they would be such poor performers because we gave them so limited direction. We gave them too much agency and not enough direction for somebody who needs a lot of direction, doesn't like agency or doesn't like autonomy, and their performance would suffer, and we'd cut them loose because their performance suffered. And we didn't want to micromanage them, nor did we know how to.
I mean, I had a person that worked for me that a while ago, and very much a need to be told at all times what to do type of person. I can remember they came up to me and said, I don't have anything to do right now, and so I'm just sitting here. I'm like, why are you sitting here? Go do something. If he's like, well, I finished all my work. What should I do? I'm like, well, don't sit there. That's a waste of time. If you want to go play some golf, go play some golf. Just take your phone with you.
Yeah.
And then that goes back to that bank piece, which is, I would rather have people that, balance and take care of their problems. I'd rather you get your work done in 4 hours. It takes somebody 8 hours, and then, live your life. But then the same thing is, if I give you that freedom, that's the bank, right? That I'm going to withdraw upon. We got a Saturday where shit's going crazy. Things are not going well. I need your help. Mm-hmm. And because I gave you the flexibility to go golf on a Tuesday, you're more apt to help me on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And when we're in the service industry, we need that kind of flexibility. So I think the closing thought here is that leadership is less about having the right words, and it's more about having enough in the bank so that when you make a boo-boo or when you need to pull from, you actually have some authority and some ability to actually do that without causing massive negative repercussions or chaos in that individual's life, because you are constantly negative with them. So I hope that this has landed on folks today and is something that's more interesting, maybe more tangible, in how to give people feedback and how to manage a feedback loop with folks, and isn't so squishy, because it is somewhat of a squishy topic, but it's one that I love very, very much. So moving on to another little bit of news. So from
actually, can I take us aside there and tie that to something else we talked about before?
For sure. Yep.
So, and again, not to plug our product, but we've talked a couple times about debits and credits when it comes to the customer as your sales rep. So I kind of want to tie this back to those conversations real quick. And again, giving people agency to make decisions when we create the incentive structure that's wide open, where it's not just monetary, right? It's not just this product has a GP of $6 a case. It's also how much effort is it going to take me to sell it in, right? And how much am I going to have to bug that buyer, get their attention that I have such a limited window on? So there is a cost there that's not monetary. So I'm making a pitch here that the same way that we talked about giving, your team member, if you're a team leader, your reps agency to make decisions around problems, giving the agency to deal with that at the individual retail account level is important too. So I just want to make sure we tie that all back together, because it's all relevant and all kind of ties back together.
I think it's a great topic to tie back in together, as the agency, autonomy, return on effort. We did a whole podcast about that. If anybody's interested in going back into the archives and listen to that, was episode 61. Is it worth it? Decoding return on effort in beer sales. And Mikey, when we're thinking about that return on effort, that's things we all have to balance as well. And I love what Ross said in that episode where one of the things you said, Ross, was, this isn't like I'm a used car salesman. This is a traditional, or this is a normal, ongoing sales relationship. I'm going to come back next week and see this person. And whatever I do with this person today to annoy them or excite them, I'm going to have to deal with the following week. And it's not like once every 4 years or 5 years am I going to sell them a car and pray they come back, and they may not. I'm going to show right back up here tomorrow. So that comes into the equation of, is it return on effort, and also how and what effort or what workload or what I'm going to select to do as well to sell. Mikey, anything you want to add there, my man?
No, I think you hit it pretty good. I mean, it's the trust factor there too. I mean, if I was to add anything, it's the trust factor. Just like we're talking with the trust factor from our managers to our reps. Deposits and withdrawals. The same thing with our account managers too, and whoever's making decisions at the account level. once we earn their trust, it goes far, far away. If we're shoving everything down their throat because it's on PFP and we know it's not going to work, they're not going to trust us when that new hot flavor does come out. They're not going to trust the words that we say is, no, you need to have this. You can't pass up this opportunity.
Yep.
And I think it's, as our society's expanded past, I think the maximum group size is like 100 as a hunter-gatherer groups. Our society is obviously way bigger than that. We've had to institutionalize the whole idea of debit and credits into actual money and banking and all this other stuff. But, I think that's also a good tie into the world in which we live, that the people that we interact with at work, people that we interact with when we're out in the trade, generally speaking, everybody's kind and everybody has, everybody else's best interest in mind. Obviously, when we go on social media, it looks like everybody hates each other and all this other shit. And I think it's just a construct of the fact that we're outside of that 100, group of people where, you're my cousin of my cousin and I know you, he has a debit with you. So that means I have responsibility to get you a chicken. I don't know. But I think, we're not meant to have a structure that's this big, that's global with this. So I don't know. And it's just me saying that the world is a much better place when you're dealing one-on-one with people every single day than it is when we see through our phones. I don't know.
100%.
I don't know why I felt like I had to say that, but I felt like I had to say that.
I love it. Well, speaking of dealing with your phones and some industry news, we've got RBC and analyst Nick Moody. I love Nick. I've gotten to meet Nick at a couple of the beverage alcohol conferences out there, and he talked about some stuff around what he's seeing in the world. One of the things I wanted to pick at was cyclical versus structural. And I thought this might be something that we could tackle on the pod, where he and RBC believe that most of today's headwinds are cyclical, things like price increases and economic uncertainty. But there are some structural shifts as well, shifts towards non-alc, wellness, fewer social occasions. And these are things that might actually a little bit of mix of structural and a little bit of mix of cyclical. Ross, what's your take right now on cyclical versus structural in the alcohol world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a strong believer in cycles. I think we're heading towards, I think what some people have written about is kind of the fourth turning. And, I think that there's also microcycles, and we've got credit expansion, credit contraction. And I think we've lived through a couple of those in our lives, and those tend to be about 4 or 5 year cycles. I think you made a great observation the other day when we were forced into a cycle with COVID and kind of put everybody on the same drinking schedule.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in cycles, and there's a lot of different cycles we can talk about. But yeah, I'm a big believer in macro cycles, micro cycles, and I think there's a good argument to be made in that.
I would agree with that. And then Mike, demographics on that COVID, he speaks out to that young drinker may rebound by 2027 because as COVID college, that cohort of age is out of university, or the folks that basically started university and then had to do most of college or their formative college years with shelter in place and with not doing big tailgates and not doing any kind of the normal habit building activities around drinking culture and out at bars or in parties. That changed a big thing. And I don't know if we gave enough credit to that kind of structural change that happened on college campuses across the United States, or for that young, and we could throw it in and out to just college. I don't think it's exclusively college, but that young drinker who wasn't going out at bars because they couldn't. That's something we probably haven't talked a lot about or spent enough time talking about either.
No, it's interesting, and it's true too. I mean, yeah, we don't really think about that or talk about it. Nor do we focus on, going back into those entry points into Bevel too, right? I mean, it's all about premiumization, but we really have no entry points for new drinkers into the category. And occasions too, we're losing out on our occasions. I mean, he points out in here that the industry's stuck on Big Ten occasions, Memorial Day, 4th of July, all that good stuff, but we don't. And we did a podcast with this with Hunter Jerome as well, but we're not doing a good job of creating drinking occasions, game nights or whatever it is out in the off premise, and bringing some of these younger drinkers in for some of these new occasions. to show them that you can drink responsibly in moderation and it's okay. But yeah, I mean, I think that's back to your point. I think that's super interesting to think about. And yeah, it's totally true.
My biggest takeaway from this is like there are brands that are growing. Like there are brands that are winning in this world as well. You've got Michelob Ultra, Guinness, Pacifico, and those are all on the lighter, lower alcohol, better for you kind of wavelength. And then you've got Beatbox and Buzzballs, which are not better for you in the frame of like this whole context of wellness. One would argue on those manufacturers that they're not bad for you. I would contend with that as an industry insider. I would agree with that as an industry insider, but those consumers are not in that part of the internet. And there's an awful lot of folks that are in our industry that are talking about the wellness side of the industry. Meanwhile, you've got Beatbox and you've got Buzzballs and you've got Voodoo Ranger, which are completely on the other spectrum, 8, 9, 10, 12% alcohol, Cutwater, off the chains at 15%, and nobody's talking about it because that network of folks there's in a different echo chamber of the internet and are looking at different people and are not paying attention to what any of the health and wellness folks are out there saying. It's just almost a weird world.
Yeah, and it's
This
almost like
you go. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
I was just real quick. I was just say it's almost like the consumer is afraid to consume volume of alcohol, like a 12-pack or an 18-pack or a drink all day, you know, or even a 6-pack when they can just grab one Beatbox or one Buzzball or one Voodoo Ranger and they feel better. I think that wellness comes into, well, I only had one drink. Yeah, but the alcohol was the same as a 6-pack or 4 beers. You know what I mean? So where they don't want to buy that larger 12-pack or 18-pack and keep a couple in their fridge. It's more of, well, I only had one. It's fine. I'm being healthy.
I mean, this generation, you know, it's such a different generation coming up behind the millennials. You know, they're the first generation born with screens, born with technology. Then they were forced to go through COVID the way they are. Now they're being forced to deal with the fact that family formation, housing, probably not going to be an option for them, right? I mean, it's just unaffordable. Something's going to break, and they're going to lead whatever break, so to speak, happens. And that's on one hand terrifying. On the other hand, I mean, it makes us millennials and Generation X look like we're pretty much cut from the same cloth. I mean, this is a completely different group of people, and you know, for us to discount what they've had to go through and what they are going through, I think, and we've talked about what motivates them and how they're different than prior generations as it relates to our industry and how it relates to selling. But it is a very different generation coming up behind us. I say us as a millennial. And it's going to be very interesting to watch.
A lot of moving and a lot of shaking. When you're talking to your suppliers and you're doing your ABP periods, because that's starting, like all ABP season is kicking off. For sure, I would be, as a distributor, talking to your supplier partners about what are you doing to drive authentic marketing. This is one of the things that Nick talked about. What are you doing to drive authentic marketing? How are you bringing perceived value to the actual market with your products, and how are you aligning with what is going on with consumer trends? And I don't want to hear about another T, and I don't want to hear about another RTD. I want to hear about how you're trying to innovate around what you are best at and unique at in the world, and how you're going to grow your business in my market and bring me things that will move if I'm a distributor. Those will be the things that I'd be wanting to talk about with all my supplier partners as ABP season kicks off. So there's opportunity out there. You don't need to roll over. So put my belly. It's such a sad market. You can make change and you can affect the outcomes, particularly if you're a distributor right now where you can sell a fleet of products and you're not just stuck selling one thing as a supplier or a few things as a smaller portfolio.
But I think that's a good call out. I think the idea of authenticity is important. I think that, again, tying it back, a generation that's grown up with being constantly bombarded with just ads and shit, that they're pushing back on it. And I think they want authenticity. I think that's a really good call out, especially when you talk about suppliers and marketing in our space.
And when we look at the brands that Nick calls out, Ultra, always state a message, better for you, the brand that helps you move. Guinness wouldn't know how to change their messaging if we told them to. Like, it's always been the same. Pacifico hasn't changed their label, in however many, 100 years or whatever. It's always been the same yellow label. They're not going to change anything. Beatbox they've been winning so much. They've got no interest. All they're doing with Beatbox is just expanding their flavor profile because they know more and more folks are looking for more flavors. And Buzzballs is like another little ship. Don't rock the boat. Like, keep doing what you're doing. That's a distribution game. The business is going well. It's vibing with consumers. Keep doing your thing. And if we get on the liquor side, there's all kinds of stuff on the liquor side that are doing well too. Just ebbs and flow. And I don't know enough about it, so I'm not going to speak to any specific brands, but there's all kinds of things on the liquor side that are managing and doing well too, even though liquor and or wine is overall category is challenged as well too. There's bright spots there, and there are brands that are doing well there too. So you can win if you want to. And you can, as a distributor, you can talk to your brands about how are they going to win and hold them accountable to bringing good ideas to the table.
I mean, you can see in the trends of like small organic craftsmanship, whether it be the sipping tequilas, and, it's permeated the wine space quite a bit too. The idea of, natural, organic, small batch craftsmanship. Again, I think there is a trend towards authenticity, right?
Well, when this episode comes out, we will only be 2 weeks away until the MBWA convention in Las Vegas, and the VXP team will be there at booth 1614 in the Milano Ballroom. Boom, look at me. I did good this week.
1664.
1614, not to confuse anybody from last week, but booth 1614 in the Milano Ballroom. And then on Tuesday, October 14th at 8 a.m., do not miss a live tapped in session where we are going to be talking about who's wagging who and how to fix your broken incentives and take back control of your sales strategy. It's 8 a.m. in Vegas. Get to bed early, folks. We're going to be out there early and bright and early. I mean, I'm going to be up early, ready to go. And if you've been listening to the pod and you're there, if you bring a beer to the 8 a.m. session, we have a special gift for you. So we hope to see everybody there. Another good episode, boys. Have we decided how you guys are going to settle this bet in Vegas too? We haven't talked about this at all.
Well, I think we just,
we need to talk to some more customers.
Yeah,
we need to figure out what happened.
Take a pool.
We're doing
goal there and how it's.
All right, Mikey. I got a couple of goal setting sessions coming up with some clients, so I'm going to ask.
Well, let's take a pool there too from some people. I'll find the people that we're going to take a poll from, and then we can sit down and we'll ask.
I'll find the people.
I'll dig into some data here, and then I'll tell you who we're going to ask.
I got a better one. Let's wait until the live session 8 a.m. We'll pull the audience, and they'll decide.
And they'll decide.
Yeah. What was the bet? $20. So we got both bring a $20 bill.
Yeah. Something like that. It's $20.
Take a check.
Bring $20 checks. No, we'll settle this in Vegas chips. I love it. Caesar's Palace chips. Love it. Well, you guys rock. Great episode. If you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe, write a review, share with your friends, send an email to us with any kind of listener question. It's info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptch.com. And we will talk with everybody soon, and we'll see you boys in 2 short weeks out in Vegas. Cheers.